There's a moment when you realize you're the only one trying. You text first, you check in first, you show up first, and no one notices when you stop. And then one day, you just stopped. Not because you stopped caring, but because caring started to hurt. Psychology actually has a name for what happened to you. And the fifth reason might change how you see yourself forever. Here are 5 deep psychological reasons why some people quietly stop reaching out. The first reason is the one most people feel, but can't name. You used to be the person everyone leaned on. The friend who checked in. The one who remembered birthdays. The one who listened when everyone else was falling apart. You held space for everyone else's problems while quietly carrying your own. And nobody noticed when you were drowning. Psychologist Shelley Taylor at UCLA spent years studying something called the tend and befriend response. It basically means that some people are wired to take care of others under stress. Not fight, not flight, just care. They soothe, they support, they stay. But here's the thing nobody talks about. That system runs on reciprocity. It was never designed to run alone. And when you keep showing up for everyone, and no one shows up for you, that's not weakness. That's burnout of a system that was never meant to run on empty. It's not laziness. It's exhaustion with a smile. And that exhaustion, it's not just emotional. Your brain is feeling it too, physically. Here's where it gets interesting. Neuroscientists once placed people inside a brain imaging scanner and watched what happened when they were deliberately left out of a simple ball-tossing game. Just a game. Nothing serious. But the brain lit up in the exact same region as physical pain, the anterior cingulate cortex. The same part of your brain that fires when you break a bone also fires when someone breaks a connection. Researcher Naomi Eisenberger at UCLA showed something that surprised even seasoned scientists. Being ignored isn't something you simply get over. Your brain literally processes it as an injury. So when you stopped reaching out, your brain wasn't being dramatic. It was protecting you from real measurable pain. That's not sensitivity. That's neuroscience. But if your brain is protecting you, where did it learn that reaching out was dangerous in the first place? That question takes us further back than most people expect. Because the truth is, most people don't suddenly stop reaching out in adulthood. They learn to stop much earlier, long before they even realize what's happening. A psychiatrist spent decades studying how the bonds we form as children shape every relationship we have as adults. His name was John Bowlby, and what he discovered changed psychology forever. Some people develop what he called an avoidant attachment style, not because they don't want connection, but because somewhere along the way, connection stopped being safe. Maybe you reached out once and no one came. Maybe you cried and were told to be quiet. Maybe you needed comfort and were given distance instead. And slowly, quietly, your brain began to write a rule. Don't reach out. You'll only be disappointed. At first, that rule protects you. It shields you from rejection. It teaches you how to survive disappointment without breaking apart. But survival rules have a hidden cost. Because the more often you silence your need for connection, the harder it becomes to recognize your own needs at all. And that leads to something deeper than avoidance, something many people live with, without ever knowing its name. There's actually a word for this, alexithymia. It comes from Greek, and it literally means no words for emotions. Not because you don't feel anything. You feel everything. You feel the tightness in your chest when someone forgets you. You feel the heaviness when a message goes unanswered. You feel the quiet disappointment when you realize, once again, you're the only one reaching out. But somewhere along the way, you stopped translating feelings into language. So when someone asked what's wrong, you say nothing. Not because you're hiding something, but because you were never taught how to describe what hurts. And when you can't name what you feel, how are you supposed to ask for what you need? So instead you adapt. You become quieter, more independent, more self-contained. From the outside, it looks like strength. You handle things alone. You don't complain. You don't depend on anyone. But inside, something else begins to happen. You start confusing silence with safety. You start believing that needing people is dangerous and that handling everything alone is the only way to stay in control. And over time, this pattern becomes automatic. Not a choice, a reflex. But here's where most people misunderstand themselves. They think stopping communication means they stopped caring. They think silence means coldness. They think distance means indifference. But what if the silence wasn't indifference at all? What if it was exhaustion layered on top of years of learning that reaching out often leads to disappointment? And what if the real question isn't why did you stop reaching out, but something much more uncomfortable? Did you stop reaching out? Or did your nervous system decide it was safer to disappear than to keep getting hurt? Did you stop reaching out? Or did your nervous system decide it was safer to disappear than to keep getting hurt? Because here's something most people never realize. Your nervous system has two very different ways of going quiet. And from the outside, they look identical. But on the inside, they feel completely different. The first is a conscious pause. You feel calm, clear, intentional. You step back, not because you're afraid, but because you finally understand your limits. You begin protecting your time, your energy, your attention. Not everyone deserves access to your peace. This kind of silence isn't withdrawal. It's discernment. It's learning that your energy is not an unlimited resource, and that constantly pouring into others without being refilled eventually empties you. But then there's the second kind of silence, the one that doesn't feel peaceful. It feels heavy, numb, disconnected. You don't step back because you chose to. You step back because your body shuts down. This is what psychologists sometimes describe as nervous system shutdown, a protective response that happens when overwhelm becomes too much to carry. And this is where the real turning point begins, because there is a massive difference between choosing silence and being trapped inside it. One is strength. The other is a signal that something inside you still needs attention, still needs care, still needs healing. And when you start to notice which silence you're living in, something powerful happens. You stop blaming yourself. You stop calling yourself distant, cold, or uncaring. And instead, you begin asking a different question. What do I actually need that I never learned to ask for? That question leads us to the fifth reason most people misunderstand completely. Psychology tells us that every human being needs three core things to thrive: autonomy, competence, relatedness. Most people assume that when you stop reaching out, you've given up on relatedness, that you've stopped wanting connection altogether. But that's not what actually happened. You didn't abandon connection. You reclaimed autonomy. You began choosing who deserves your energy instead of giving it to everyone who asks. You began noticing who shows up and who only shows up when it's convenient. And slowly, quietly, something shifts inside you. You're not pushing people away. You're pulling yourself closer, closer to your values, closer to your boundaries, closer to the version of yourself that no longer tolerates one-sided effort. And when you see the full picture, something important becomes clear. You didn't stop reaching out because you're cold. You stopped because your nervous system remembered every unanswered message, every one-sided effort, every time you showed up and no one showed up for you. You didn't stop caring. You stopped pretending it didn't hurt. And maybe, just maybe, this isn't the end of connection. Maybe this is the beginning of a better one. A connection built on mutual effort, mutual respect, mutual presence. So if this message feels like it explains something you've been carrying silently, take a moment to sit with that realization. Because understanding yourself is not weakness, it's power. And if you've ever wondered why some people feel completely drained when guests show up at their door, why social interaction feels exhausting instead of energizing, the psychology behind that might surprise you even more. Subscribe, stay curious, and keep exploring the deeper patterns shaping who you are. Because the more you understand your mind, the less alone you feel inside it.